Shalom, shalom. First and foremost, all praises and double honors due to Yahweh Bashem Hamashiach wa Malak Yahushai. Brother Yardan W. Detroit, coming back at you with the another cold cut. Today in this cold cut, we will be going over the word of the day. And the word of the day is Malta. Where I find it important that we go over certain words because when you read the Bible, you don't read it like a comic book. Neither do you read it like a graphic novel. You read it to understand what's going on, who's speaking, the tone, the speech, right? You have to know everything to the best of your ability. You have to get the full, proper understanding thereof. Right? As I always mention, when you read the scriptures, right, you have to put on your different lens, for lack of better words. Right? When you read the scriptures, sometimes you may have to understand the history behind it. So you have to understand on a historical level, right? As to why he said this during this time period. You may have to understand on a high spiritual level, right? What does this really mean? You understand? And then sometimes, even on a black and white level, it is what it is. It's plain upon tables, right? And you also come across certain words that you may not know, and you have to know what these words are. Like any other book that you may read, even if you're at work, you come across words you don't know. What do? You Google it, right, to get to understand it. So this is the word Malta. Sounded for Compact Bible Dictionary. Malta, an island now called Malta, situated, it's like it, Melita, an island now called Malta, situated in a strategically it's like an important position some 60 miles south of Sicily. Rome acquired the island in 218, but the Carthaginian language continued to be spoken. Hence Luke's phrase, the barbarous people. And again, this is designed of a Compact Bible Dictionary. This is a very important book, right? Because it even provides the precepts. It tells us Acts, it's like it goes to Acts 28 and 2. Right? And for those who don't know, Luke is a scribe and he wrote out the accounts of what happened during Paul's ministry. So again, barbarous, of course, being used in the Greek sense of foreign speaking. All right, so that's why these words are important to understand, because a lot of people may think to themselves the barbarians were all Edomites, right? They think of a caveman with that damn club, that wooden club, and wearing that long toga, right? Barbarians were Israelites, right? And they had a foreign language. So with that understanding, we get a little bit of insight, or a lot more insight, of what Galatians 3rd chapter is speaking about, of what Acts 28 is talking about. You understand? So again, let's dive into it. Abba Ratazah Israel may get edified through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shemel Shai, the precepts and the points that are brought out today. And I'm going to say it again, when you read this Bible, you have to really get into it. You have to dive deep. You have to imagine yourself being there, right? You did that when you watch certain TV shows. You did that when you read other books of the world. You did that when you read comic books and manga, things of that nature. So why not do that for the Bible? This is your culture. This is your history. You have to really vision yourself being there. So this is Acts, the 28th chapter. And when they escaped, then they knew that the island was called Melita, right? As we read earlier, it's pronounced Malta now. And the barbarous people showed us no little kindness. So again, those barbarous people, those are Israelites that spoke a foreign language. How do we know? Let's continue to read. They showed us no little kindness, for they kindled a fire and received us every one, because of the present rain and because of the cold. And when Paul had gathered the bundle of sticks and laid them on the fire, there came a viper out of the heat and fastened on his hand. So that viper got a hold on Paul and bit him. And when the barbarians saw the venomous beast hang on his hand, they said among themselves, no doubt this man is a murderer, whom, though he have escaped the sea, yet vengeance suffereth not to live. And what did Paul say to all of this? He shook off the beast into the fire and felt no harm. Howbeit they looked when he should have swollen or fallen down dead suddenly, but after that they had looked a great while and saw no harm come to him. They changed their minds and said that he was a god. You know, and this is them going off. The barbarians are going off. You got to remember, this their mind isn't too fresh. They called him a god one moment, and then they said it's like they said it was judgment one moment, and then called him a god the next moment. All right. Let's let's jump down. Now I believe that's all I wanted. Yeah, that's all I wanted. And that's what you call being superstitious, right? That's what you call being so-called over-righteous and double-minded. Because a lot of brothers think, oh, if this brother were to trip, I only got a flat tire, the Lord judged him. He's not dealing with him no more. Every little so-called inconvenience in life, that can't be a result of you, you know, breaking the commandments. Sometimes the little things just happen, right? On a low level, for those who have an ear, let them hear. On a low black and white level, hey, sometimes certain things may just happen, for lack of better words. But let's get a precept. This is Ecclesiastes chapter. Where should we start? Chapter 11, verse 3. If the clouds be full of rain, they empty themselves upon the earth. And if the tree fall toward the south or toward the north, and the place where the tree falleth, there shall it be. Right? So sometimes trees in the forest, they fall. That doesn't mean too much. Sometimes it fell. That's nature, so-called. Right? You can't always chalk things up. Oh, that's judgment. Oh, the Lord did that because, hey, that's Israel falling. Right? You want to be over righteous. Right? You have to have some type of discernment and be practical. So let's go back to the word of Malta. Bear with me. An island now called Malta, situated in a strategically important position some 60 miles south of Sicily. And that part is important as well. Right, we're going to get the accounts and pull up the maps because you have to understand these things. You don't want to just, know things on the surface level. You have to take that knife and cut deep into the cake and observe all the layers. So we're going to start at Acts chapter 27. I got the bear with me. I'm gonna pull it up. Pull it up on my laptop. I'm gonna pull out some maps for Israel. All right. This is Acts 27 and 1. And when it was determined that we should sail into Italy, they delivered Paul and certain other prisoners unto one named Julius, a centurion of Augustus' band. And entering into a ship of Adramyttium, we launched, a meaning to sail by the coast of Asia. One Aristarchus, a Macedonian of Thessalonica, being with us. All right, so let's pull up the map. Let's pull up where Adramyttium is. And again, for those brothers or sisters, you may have some type of thought in your mind. This isn't important. This isn't deep. It said every word of God is pure in Proverbs 30 and 11. So here's the map. Bear with me. I want to get the right picture. Perfect. Let me see if I can flip the camera. That's the map, right? And there you see Adramyttium, right there. That's where Paul got on a boat. Let's continue to read. And entering into the ship of Adramyttium, we launched, meaning to sail by the coast of Asia. One Aristarchus, a Macedonian of Thessalonica, being with us. And the next day we touched at Sidon. Right? The next day they touched at Sidon. Let's continue to read. Salakia. And Julius courteously entreated Paul and gave him liberty to go unto his friends to refresh himself. And Sidon, where is that? It's further down, if I'm not mistaken. That's further down. Oh, it's like it's right over here. Sidon. They went all the way down over to Sidon. Let's continue to read. Verse 4. And when we had launched from thence, we sailed under Cyprus. So they was from Adramyttium. They went all the way down to Sidon, right? So Paul could refresh. And where did they go after that? They went under Cyprus, right there. Wish I could draw it for Israel, but you can see it. It's like here. I'm going to continue to read verse 5. And when we had sailed over the sea of Sicilia and Pamphylia, we came to Myra, the city of Lycia. Right? So they went from Adramyttium all the way down to Sidon, under Sicilia, Pamphylia, and even Myra and Lycia. That's the city. Okay, all praises. I can zoom in. That's the city, Lycia. Let's continue to read. And there the centurion found the ship of Alexandria sailing into Italy, because that's the end goal. That's where they're supposed to go, Italy. That's their destination. And when we had sailed slowly, many days and scarce were come over against Cnidus. That's Cnidus, that's number 8. So it's telling the whole travels, the entire travels of him ultimately trying to get to Italy. Let's go back. The wind not suffering us, we sailed under Crete over against Salomon. You can see that Cape Salomon, and they went under Crete. And hardly passing it, came unto a place which is called the Fair Havens, nigh whereunto was the city of Lycia. Now when much time was spent, and when sailing was now dangerous, because the fast was now already past, Paul admonished them, and said unto them, Sirs, I perceive that this voyage will be with hurt and much damage. So Paul is using wisdom. He's using discernment, right? It might have been cloudy. It might have been getting nasty outside. And he's using wisdom and discernment, We just read that in Ecclesiastes. If the clouds be full of rain, then they empty themselves. But I digress. Let's continue to read. Verse 10. And said unto them, Sirs, I perceive that this voyage will be with hurt and much damage, not only of the lading and ship, but also of our lives. Nevertheless, the centurion believed the master and the owner of the ship more than those things which were spoken by Paul. Right? And because the haven was not commodious to winter, and the more part advised to depart thence also, if by any means they might attain to Phoenice. Right, where's Phoenice? Probably overlooking it, but it's over here in this area, this region. But anyway, let's continue to read. More part advised to depart thence also, if by any means they might attain to Phoenice, and there to winter, which is an haven of Crete, and lie toward the southwest and in the northwest. And when the south wind blew softly, supposing that they had obtained their purpose, Losing thence, they sailed close by Crete. So this is their journey. Now they're by Crete, right over here. Where are we at? Verse 14. But not long after there arose against it a tempestuous wind called Euroclydon. And when the ship was caught and could not bear up unto the wind, we let her drive. And running under a certain land, it's like an island, which is called Claudia. So now where's Claudia? Right there. That's Claudia. That's number 12. Right? And running under a certain island, which is called Claudia, we had much work to come by the boat, which when they had taken up, they used helps and undergirdings, the ships, and fearing lest Salakia. Fearing lest they should fall into the quicksands, straight sails, and so were driven. And we being exceedingly tossed with the tempest, the next day they lightened the ship, and the third day we cast out. It's like we cast with our own hands the tackling of the ships. And when neither sun nor stars in many days appeared, and no small tempest lay on us, all hope that we should be saved was then taken away. Right? Because sometimes after huge storms, it gets kind of calm, and the wind doesn't really blow like that. And you really need to the sails to, it's like the winds to direct you, or not really direct you, but that's pretty much your engine. That's your oil, I should say, that keeps the boat going. Verse 21. But after long abstinence, Paul stood forth in the midst of them and said, Sirs, ye should have hearkened unto me, and not have loosed from Crete, and to have gained this harm and loss. So Paul leaned on them. But let's continue reading. And now I exhort you to be of good cheer, for there shall be no loss of any man's life among you, but of the ship. For there stood by me this night the angel of God, whose I am, and whom I serve, saying, Fear not, Paul, thou must be brought before Caesar. And lo, God hath given thee all them that sail with thee. Right, so all the men are on a boat, they're meant to be preserved. Wherefore, sirs, be of good cheer, for I believe God, that it shall be even as it was told me. Howbeit we must be cast upon a certain island. Right? Verse 27. But when the 14th night was come, as we were driven up and down in Adria about midnight, the shipman deemed that they drew near to some country, and sounded and found it 20 fathoms. And when they had gone a little further, they sounded again and found it 15 fathoms. They're getting closer and closer. Then, fearing lest we should have fallen upon rocks, they cast 4 anchors out of the stern and wished for the day. Verse 30. And as the shipmen were about to flee out of the ship, when they had let down the boat into the sea under color, as though they would have cast anchors out of the ship, Paul said to the centurion and to the soldiers, Except these abide on the ship, ye cannot be saved. In other words, you got to deal with it. Then the soldiers cut off the ropes of the boat and let her fall off. And while the day was coming, and they listened to Paul, right? Paul gained their favor. And while the day was coming on, Paul besought them all to take meat, saying, This day is the 14th day, that ye have tarried and continued fasting, having taken nothing. Wherefore, I pray you, take you some meat, for this is for your health. And this is a precept to let us know that you can eat meat. All right, if there's been any, confusion or whatever, hey, you can eat meat. Paul ate meat, right? And Paul is a follower of Christ. And Paul said, Be ye followers of me, as I am of Mashiach. But continuing on in verse 34, For there shall not an hair fall from the head of any of you. And when he had thus spoken, he took bread and gave thanks to God in presence of them all. And when he had broken it, he began to eat. Verse 36. It's like verse 36. Then were they all of good cheer, and they also took some meat. And we were all, it's like we were in all the ship, 260 souls. That's a lot of people in the ship. And when they had eaten enough, they lightened the ship and cast out the wheat into the sea. And when it was day, they knew not the land, but they discovered a certain creek with a shore, into the which they were minded, if it were possible, to thrust in the ship. And when they had taken up the anchors, they committed themselves unto the sea and loosed the rudder. It's like the rudder bands and hoist up the mainsail. And again, you have to picture yourself being there. I mean, this is a crazy, crazy thing going on, right? Paul is kind of in prison. You know, people kind of arguing, kind of screaming for their lives. I'm led to believe people was falling. It's like you call upon fake gods, you know. But Paul stayed in the spirit in the midst of all that. Verse 41. And failed, it's like in falling into a place where two seas meet or met. They ran the ship aground, and for part stuck fast and remained unmovable. But the hinder part was broken with the violence of the waters. And the soldiers' counsels was to kill the prisoners, lest any escape. It's like lest any of them should swim out and escape, you know. And that's crazy. That's crazy in itself. Verse 43. But the centurion, willing to save Paul, kept them from their purpose, and commanded that they which could swim should cast themselves first into the sea and get to the land. And the rest, some on boards, and some on broken pieces of the ship. And so it came to pass that they escaped all to safe land. And again, when you we just read a little bit of 28, but in reading 28, we find that they finally landed on Malta, right? That's 15 on the map. They finally landed to Malta. And that's a place that was, this is under the Roman Empire now, but previously it was taken from the Carthaginians, right? It was taken by the Carthaginians, and Hannibal was the general over, Carthage pretty much. But they lost during the Second Punic War, if I'm not mistaken, by the Romans. So now they occupy this land. But nevertheless, the people of this land were considered barbarians because they spoke a foreign tongue and they didn't speak Greek and or Roman. They more than likely spoke a type of Phoenician. So that's the word of the day, Malta, right? And understanding that island, we know what happened with Paul, the events, So this history is beautiful, whether it be great and or small. So Abba Ratazah Israel has been edified through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shemel Shai. That was the word of the day. Abba Ratazah, we can continue this segment with the word of the days. With that, I'm bid Israel Shalom.